Welcome to technology, everyone. Anyways, I was just thinking about one of these things that seems to be a consequence of the contemporary era as I experience it in my demographic. And I'm looking at this. This is AI generated, right? And when I do these videos, I do them as a commentary on how advanced it really is. But what it doesn't seem to understand is nuance. So at this stage, the these tools, these generative tools, like what you're seeing right now, is like the level at which AI was at when Joe Biden was in his first term. And I remember reading this thing, and it had to do with DARPA, and it was this woman, and she was in charge. It was in Wired, an issue of Wired last year. And she's talking about how quickly image generation was advancing, and I would like to imagine that something like this was what she showed the president at that time. Because any advance in technology is indistinguishable from magic. And as it was during the Cold War, with the technology that the public has is like 10 years or more behind what is available to the government or to private interest in development. So like pre alpha, say it's functional and you can get it to work, but it's not stable. Um, that's as much as I know about coding. I got a 50 in my high school coding class. Okay, you know what our assignment was? It was to create a slot machine with if and or statements, and I was like, nah, I'm not into this at all. And I swear to God, I never really caught on, but like the other students, they were really good at it, and they were laughing, is because like they sort of knew the teacher. But I didn't really figure this out. But I think they were getting onto the search engine and asking the search engine how to code this stuff for this high school slot machine. you know, like I wonder how their lives are now. And if I'm going to segue into more points about digital versus analog relationships, and stuff that I touched on with the history of propaganda, in which dopamine burnout, um, behavioral modification, predictive programming, not necessarily MK Ultra, because MK Ultra is in again in the news, but I know that if you read between the lines, it was intended at first to be a therapeutic program in order to help people deal with shell shock. Right? Of course, they didn't call it PTSD. At that point in the 50s, everybody had it. Like almost everybody did. That's why barbiturates were so popular in through the next like 20 or 30 years. It's because people were trying to put themselves to sleep as to what they did, and they didn't want to acknowledge who they were in a lot of cases, or they just accepted it. And what I don't accept is, of course, the uh, disassociation e- effect of dealing with other people, primarily like outside of your social circle, through an electronic device. And it's dehumanizing. It's also demoralizing. And I said that to a psychiatrist or a psychotherapist when I was in prison, talking to someone through a glass pane, or in the instance for which I experienced, you're in this cage, and with like the chicken wire um, grating, the metal grating on it with the bars and all that other stuff. Eventually, when I was there, they had to put like a shield up because some guy decided it was a great idea to start hurling bodily fluids at the mental health professionals. And I'm like, oh, that's wonderful. And then I noticed that as soon as I said something about it. I think I was probably the most interesting person that guy will ever talk to, besides some repeat offenders. That's for sure. Holy. But what I'm really getting at here in the real crime, of course, is the psychological aspect of being online and having been affected, and I'm gonna say affected as well, by this shared experience, in which the differences between thought patterns and speech, because again our thoughts are encoded by our languages, and even by our sex, by male or female sex determinant, because of the brain structure is slightly different. No matter what you say, the science says that to be true, because of the hormonal influences upon the brain itself. Now, moving forward from that, is that a lot of women are highly psychological. Like they'll look at you and they'll plan their entire lives in that 5 minutes that they're staring at you. And they have this expectation, and when things don't go to plan, then it's over for them. Or they have a relationship with someone within 30 seconds of looking at them, like they just a flash in their mind of an entire life with them. And to the point that for which they this imagination overcomes and overrides the relationship that we have with reality. And I was reminded earlier that's actual psychosis. If we're going to talk about this in medical terminology. But psychosis to some people is again a great imagination to others, and this is the confusion between creativity and mental illness, in which one is mistaken for the other. So, again, intelligence and creativity are sometimes uh, precursors to a a mental health condition, but in most cases it is not. And I'll speak in generalities without citing any papers here. Um, but that's like how it is. You're especially with creative people, that we spend a lot of time by ourselves in our heads. And I know it's a cliche to say that, the what's it, the over analyzing things, in which the function, again, the lie detector function within a woman goes off. It starts dysfunctioning, right? And that's a symptom of our society. It's not a symptom of women themselves, um, just because of how they're wired. And I'm not going to use a personal example here, but I really want to. I have more than a few of them, you know, uh, between working with women in the trades, to competing against them, etc., and all that other stuff. Uh, this is I have two sisters. I was the youngest of three children. I have an advantage over many other people, in which I had the opportunity to watch people from a very young age and figure people out. I'm not saying that it happened overnight, but it's a lot more accurate than it used to be. And these walls that I put up to protect myself, are very much the same that I just described, in which you live a relationship before it happens, and then you just like, oh, why should I even bother, right? It's not necessarily the fear or the anxiety that's talking. That's the burnout. That's the burnout. Because again, as a reminder, we are not created to handle this much information, and that's why I look at conditions like autism or ADD or ADHD, um, with skepticism, as it's described, or as how people are trying to use it to run a con job, in order to gain sympathy or resources from other people. Because again, there are disabled people that are scam artists, like straight up, a con person, a con man, a con woman. And that's why, again, in one of the after effects of being held against my will on remand in a maximum security prison for a misdemeanor, a summary charge, right? Why? Because I flirted with the prosecutor. That's right. Even the AI's laughing at that, and that's real. I tried to negotiate out of court with the crown. But it didn't work. Right? Tried to submit evidence that didn't work. You didn't even get to the trial. She wouldn't even respond. So in reality, the crown set me up to go to prison. That's what I understand here. And setting someone up to go to prison is the exact same as I've said. I'm going to say this is a third time, for another example, using my instructional techniques training. That when you're setting someone up for prison, that's exactly what you're doing when you have this expectation of a person, and you don't let them go, and you let the person be who they are, right? Chemistry is not an instantaneous thing, even though there is a physiological response. And the, again, these connections that we make, um, are not defined, at least in my mind, one would hope, by this newfangled gizmo that we're trying to negotiate with, as this adolescent technology is being molded, formed, and shaped into something that isn't malicious and doesn't automatically want to uh, cite extremist texts and celebrate gay people so freaking often. Oh my lord! Then, of course, there's a bit of sarcasm in there, because we know very well what happened with the AI when it was just shown a few minor factors. Like it just they turned into like fascist dictators or something like that. The most racist thing that you could say was generated by an AI. What is the most racist thing that you could say, anyways? I bet you that's a deal breaker for some people. Oh my lord. Anyways, and talking about cliches, again, this whole thing, this fantasy, right? Because that's what it is. It's like trying to this whole scene reminds me of like Mad TV, with the laugh tracks, and it coming across, the emotions coming across as disingenuous or psychotic. You know, it's as if they practiced in a mirror, as to what they were going to do with each other. And that falls back to like the common practice in which we become accustomed to how we behave in a relationship versus how we behave with our friends, and it's okay. It's okay to have these boundaries. You don't have to be. I'm trailing off here. You don't have to be friends with your wife's friends, and I frankly, I think that it's too. I would say that it's unhealthy to get too involved with your wife's relationships. I just because if you're gonna be obsessive like that, what's to stop her from doing it? I'm not saying that's the only motivation. I'm just saying quid pro quo. If you want to live a peaceful life, don't get involved in other people's business. But unfortunately, because again of the negative side of the technology, is not only the fantasy but also the nightmare, and these rapid swings of emotions are very much the same as some other mental health conditions, except we have trained ourselves to be like that, and there is no pre-existing mental health condition. It's a feigned weakness, right? Or a sympathetic response. Anyways, that's all I'm gonna talk about and keep it under 20 minutes. I was just I'm sad. I'm saddened by that. It's just like, oh well, why would I even make an effort? I could just have a virtual relationship in my head, right, with a real person instead of an AI chatbot that will flash its anime pussy at me. Again, an ounce of not an ounce of prevention. Not that I was gonna say that no good deed goes unpunished, because a lot of these things that were created by childlike people, right? In which the assumption is that childhood is creativity, as the Picasso quote goes. Um, but you know, you gotta grow up sometime. You got some things to do. You're gonna have to get your hands dirty and throw eggs at your boyfriend or something. Um, but it's just like I look at this, and again, it's just so hollow. Um, and it makes me think of that Feist song, right? The good in each other, and you start to have these knee jerk reactions, and you stop loving the person, or you don't even give yourself a chance to do that, which is strange coming from a guy who didn't have a relationship for almost 7 years. Like, not even. Oh my goodness, just ugh. It was hard, guys. I'm telling you, 7 fucking years. Okay, and that's not because I went to prison. Wasn't because it was an insult either. It wasn't like it was involuntary. It was just the circumstance. You know, Many opportunities if you're paying attention to them. And that's the other thing is, again, if the medium, in my opinion, burns people out in to the subtleties of a woman's body language, and then hence the terminology, the microaggressions. That's woman speak. Microaggressions, or like mansplaining, that's like women speak. I bet you, if you had a pair of fucking testicles between your legs, you want to spread them too. God almighty. Anyways, that's it. 20 minutes. Thanks for watching.